NovaGene's Twilight, Shadows on Cirrus-One. Welcome back to our channel. Imagine this, an assassin with a conscience, a desperate fight aboard a crumbling starship, and four fearless sisters reclaiming their legacy from a corrupt biotech empire. At the heart of it all is Orion Vale, whose final showdown with Johann Krone pushes him to the brink of life and death. But will justice prevail, or will Krone's sinister schemes survive to plague the galaxy once more? You won't believe how this epic saga ends. Make sure you listen all the way through to discover Orion's fate and whether the NovaGene heirs finally find peace or lose everything they fought for. If you enjoy thrilling stories packed with action, redemption, and unforgettable characters, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Your support helps us bring more gripping adventures to life. Also, leave us a comment below with your thoughts and let us know where you're listening from. Now let's dive in. Chapter 1. Arrival at Cirrus-One. Orion Vale stood at the edge of Docking Bay Epsilon, watching the bustle of Cirrus-One with a wary eye. The massive space station loomed like a silent colossus against the star-speckled backdrop. Glass-domed promenades and metal sectors spanned in concentric rings, each tier alive with neon advertisements and corporate insignias flickering in countless languages. The crowds were as diverse as the galaxy itself, traveling merchants haggling over exotic goods, corporate couriers hauling data rods, drifters swaying in from the latest cargo vessels, and sleek-suited executives overseeing teams of well-armed guards. Overhead, huge digital billboards displayed slogans from the station's de facto owner, NovaGene Corporation. One read, NovaGene building a brighter tomorrow. Another, innovation through cooperation. Orion smirked under the brim of his hood. He knew enough about NovaGene to recognize how hollow those slogans could be. Officially, the biotech giant ran philanthropic programs across multiple star systems. Unofficially, rumors abounded of unethical experiments, clandestine arms deals, and exploitation of smaller frontier colonies. He had arrived to confirm one rumor in particular, that NovaGene's rising star, Johann Krone, was trafficking genetically modified implants to warlords and black market syndicates. 3 days earlier, Orion had received a cryptic message from an old associate claiming Krone's operation went beyond smuggling. The man had scribbled half-coherent notes about human test subjects and heirs forcibly altered, then gone silent. Orion needed the truth, and he had a personal incentive too. The bounty on Krone's head reached 7 figures, enough to buy a safe corner of the galaxy to retire in peace, away from the memories that still haunted him. Now stepping off this battered freighter that delivered him, Orion took a moment to adjust his gear. Beneath a lightweight cloak, he wore an armored chest plate composed of woven ballistic fibers, rigged with a concealed pulse pistol and hacking module. Over years of covert ops, he'd learned to travel light. He slipped through the customs queue swiftly, presenting forged station clearance to board inspectors. They barely glanced up. Cirrus-One saw tens of thousands of visitors daily. That anonymity was exactly what Orion needed. Past the security lines, the station interior opened up like a small city. Curved walkways dotted with storefronts, flickering neon signs, advertising everything from fusion cuisine to AI-driven body modifications. The air carried a faint tang of recycled oxygen, layered with a million different perfumes and the electrical hum of roving drones. A half hour later, he reached a dimly lit lounge called the Amber Spoke. Its windows overlooked an industrial dock choked with cargo containers. Orion took a seat in a corner booth, scanning faces for his contact. A slender figure in a threadbare coat soon approached, face partially hidden by a synth mask. The person slid into the seat across from him, voice modulated to a raspy pitch. Your Vale. Orion nodded, letting his posture convey both readiness and caution. Depends on who's asking. The stranger gave a low chuckle. Allies aren't always obvious on Cirrus-One, but I'm no threat. A gloved hand emerged from the coat with a data chip. This is what you asked for, Krone's private logs. Orion accepted the chip, slipping it under his cloak. So it's real then? The rumors of child subjects, forced genetic implants? Happening right under everyone's nose, the stranger confirmed. Krone is unstoppable unless you find him, and the leverage that ties him to the NovaGene board. People say he's also gotten hold of the 4 heirs. If that's true, But Orion's contact tensed suddenly, eyes fixed on the lounge entrance. 4 uniformed station security officers stepped inside, scanning the room. Possibly just a routine check, but the atmosphere crackled with tension. The stranger hissed, "Time's up. I have to go." They hurriedly stood, pulling the coat tight. One last thing. They're building a new lab on a planet called Radion 6. If Kron's logs mention it, investigate. That's where the worst secrets get buried. Without another word, the stranger slipped away, blending into the lounge crowd. The security officers lingered, but Orion kept calm, nursing a synthale and feigning disinterest until they moved on. He left soon after, stepping back into the main thoroughfare. Tapping a concealed earpiece, he mumbled, "Alpha, check this chip." In response, a filtered AI voice crackled in his ear. "Initiating scan, minimal encryption. File references to sub-level labs, experimental subjects, shipping logs to unregistered outposts. Looks authentic." Orion exhaled slowly. Then Johann Kron is definitely up to his neck in black market biotech. Good. Let's start with his known operations here on Cirrus-One. We find them, we find him. Suddenly, the overhead speakers chimed, announcing station night cycle. Corridor lights dimmed. He pulled up the station's map on his wrist console, setting a course for the sub-level industrial rings, where rumor had it Kron kept a hidden facility. He glanced back at the neon-lit promenade, faintly aware that stepping into Kron's domain might mean crossing lines of no return. But that was Orion's life in a nutshell, always one step away from the edge. Next contract, the next shot at what he called justice. With a final check of his gear, he headed deeper into Cirrus-One, unwittingly on a path that would entangle him with 4 women, NovaGene's heirs, and plunge him into a conspiracy with galactic reverberations. Chapter 2. A laboratory revealed. The freight elevator clanked ominously as it descended into Sector 12 sublevel, an industrial underbelly rarely visited by tourists. Harsh fluorescent tubes flickered overhead, casting elongated shadows on walls streaked with rust and old coolant residue. Orion's contact had pointed him here, specifically to an abandoned storage block rumored to be Kron's covert research station. As the elevator rattled to a stop, Orion pressed himself against the side, scanning the corridor. A single overhead camera pivoted back and forth. He crouched low, flipping the switch on his hacking module, a small disc on his gauntlet. In seconds, the camera's feed looped, showing an empty corridor. He advanced methodically. Around the corner, 2 armed guards in matching black uniforms whispered to each other. Their posture suggested professional training, straight backs, eyes always moving. NovaGene's corporate crest glinted on their breastplates. Moving with a stealth born of experience, Orion pinned himself to the wall. He waited until the guards turned slightly away, then lunged. A swift chop to the first guard's neck dropped him unconscious. The second fumbled for a sidearm, but Orion's elbow slammed into his jaw. Both men slumped silently to the floor. He dragged them into a dark alcove before trying the locked door they'd been guarding. A palm scanner beeped in denial. Hacking it took half a minute of careful rewiring. The door hissed open, revealing a wide corridor lined with heavy crates and stenciled lab equipment, gene sequencers, cryotanks, and containers labeled biohazard, level 4. The deeper he ventured, the more advanced the labs became. Windows of reinforced glass allowed glimpses of partitioned rooms stuffed with medical pods. Orion caught sight of children, some obviously under 10, others in early adolescence, hooked to IV lines and electrodes lying in sedation. Anger tightened his jaw. This exceeded mere gray area biotech. It was monstrous. A faint electronic beep pulled him from shock. Glancing sideways, he spotted a stray security drone floating near the corridor's far end. Quickly pressing himself behind a rolling cabinet, he initiated his hacking disk again. With a directed pulse, he jammed the drone's sensors for the few seconds needed to slip across the hall undetected. He found a small control room behind a half-ajar sliding door. Banks of monitors displayed different sections of the facility, plus real-time medical readouts. A harried technician in a white coat scrolled through data, muttering under his breath. Another figure, presumably a security officer, studied the screens. Orion inhaled. This was the vantage point he needed. He set his rifle to stun, fired once. The security officer collapsed. The technician whirled in alarm, but Orion pinned him with a glare. "Don't call for help," Orion growled, voice low and threatening. I just need Crone. Tell me where he is. The technician raised shaking hands. He's not here. He left for the upper levels an hour ago. I can show you. Orion jerked his chin at the monitors. Show me proof that Crone runs this place. Documents, logs, anything. With trembling fingers, the technician punched some keys. A central screen lit up with a hollow profile of Johann Crone. Dozens of references scrolled by. Shipments, project codes, experimental metrics. Many included horrifying details. Trial durations for child test subjects, success rates of forced genetic implants, error rates leading to discarded subjects. Nobody can know, the technician stammered, tears in his eyes. We were told it was for advanced research, that the results would create cures, help the galaxy. But these kids, he couldn't continue. Orion's anger flared, but he forced himself to stay controlled. How do the heirs factor in? Heirs? The technician blinked in confusion. Oh, you mean the 4 siblings? He typed another command, 4 profiles loaded on screen, each featuring a woman's face. They looked eerily alike, almost quadruplets, each with subtle differences. Hair color, eye shape. The names read Zara, Callie, Viella, Rena. You see? The technician gulped. They're NovaGene's founding daughters. The board called them advanced clones, but rumor says they're real genetic offspring from the old CEO. Crone has them in a private sub-lab, wanted to recondition them. They might be next in line to run NovaGene, so controlling them means controlling the corporation. Orion let out a slow breath. The puzzle pieces were aligning. If Crone manipulated these heirs, he'd effectively seize NovaGene from within. He also recalled the talk of them being taken off the official records, implying the rest of the board might be unaware or complicit. Where are these 4 now? He demanded. Vault Lab, the technician said quietly, pointing to a camera feed. Down that hallway to the right. But you can't go in. Crone left armed militia behind. Orion gave a curt nod. Stay here, keep quiet. If you raise an alarm, you'll regret it. Slipping from the control room, he hurried along the path indicated. The corridor ended at a thick, reinforced door. A digital readout blinked. Biocontainment lock, level Omega. Heavy footsteps sounded on the other side. More guards. Orion pressed a palm to the wall, double-checking the environment. No vantage windows, no side entrances. This would be a direct confrontation. He tried the door panel, locked tight. With no obvious way to hack from here, he prepared a small, shaped charge from his belt pouch. He attached it carefully to the lock's base. The muffled beep of the charge counting down made his heart pound. Boom! The explosion blew the door's mechanism wide open in a shower of sparks, triggering an alarm klaxon. Shouts rose from inside, followed by the whine of charging energy weapons. Orion rolled into the threshold, rifle raised, unleashing precise shots. One guard pitched backward, stunned. Another guard scrambled behind a console, returning fire. A third tried to flank Orion but caught a stun blast to the leg. Within 20 furious seconds, the lab fell silent except for the alarm's relentless blare. In the center of the room stood 4 upright pods with transparent panels. Inside each, a motionless woman with an IV line trailing from her arm. Their appearances matched the hollow profiles, one with short silver hair, another with swirling tattoos, one with teal-dyed streaks, and a final with a severe buzz cut. An ominous mechanical hum caught Orion's attention. The pods were draining sedation fluid. He rushed to the closest control panel, scanning the readouts. This sedation cycle had been forcibly extended, likely the guard's attempt to keep the heirs docile. He hammered in commands to release them. The pods hissed open, vents releasing white steam. The woman with silver hair, ID tag reading Callie, slumped forward, breathing shallowly. Orion hastily disconnected her from the IV. One by one, he freed them all. Zara, Callie, Viella, Rena. The sedation left them half-conscious, eyes flickering. A faint alarm strobe cast the room in red pulses, highlighting the chaos. Another wave of footsteps echoed from the corridor. The entire sublevel had likely been alerted. Orion had to move, fast. He gently propped Zarawi against the wall. She blinked, focusing on him. Who are you? Orion Vale, She coughed. Are you Crone's new enforcer? Not even close, Orion said bitterly, helping Callie unhook the last wire. I'm here to bring Kron down. Zara's gaze flicked to the unconscious guards. So you're saving us? Yes, but we need to go. Can you walk? She nodded vaguely, though her limbs trembled. Rena tried to stand, gritting her teeth. Viella leaned on the console. The sedation made them unsteady, but anger lit their eyes, an echo of regal pride. Let's move, Orion urged. The corridor outside erupted with shouts. More guards inbound. A firefight here would trap them. He scanned the lab's blueprint on the console. There was a second exit, a cargo lift leading to a seldom-used docking bay. He turned to the four. We're heading out the back route. Stay close. Keep your heads down. Though exhausted, the women squared their shoulders. They had just awakened from sedation in a lab they never chose to be in, but each wore an expression that spelled deep resolve. Together they sprinted from the vault lab, sirens wailing in their wake. Somewhere above them, Crone moved like a spider weaving a web. Orion couldn't shake the feeling that the real fight was only beginning. And these four heirs, forcibly reconditioned, might be the key to exposing everything NovaGene was hiding. Chapter 3. High-stakes escape. The corridor behind them rattled with the pounding of boots, flashlights swinging wildly. Orion led the group to a cargo lift at the end of a dimly lit passage. The elevator's control panel glowed a dusty green, reading maintenance use only. Viella, the teal-streaked heir, grimaced. Why does it feel like we've leapt into the middle of a war zone? Callie rubbed her temple, eyes still hazy from sedation. Because we have. Kron's private militia is no joke. Rena hung back a step, scanning their flank. We can't outrun them forever. We need to cripple their pursuit. Orion punched the panel, urging the elevator to hurry. We'll do that once we reach the docking bay. I know a few sabotage tricks that might slow them down. Zara, despite her shaking legs, demanded, We still don't know who you are, Orion Vale. Why risk so much to save us? Money, morals? He snorted. Bit of both. Kron has a bounty on his head, but I'm not one to stand aside when I see children being tortured in labs, or when I find four imprisoned heirs used as corporate puppets. A flicker of gratitude crossed Zara's features, but she quickly masked it with a stern nod. The elevator arrived with a squeal, and they piled in. Orion slammed the door shut, selecting the maintenance dock 6 levels above. As it ascended, the women tried to shake off sedation fully. Orion noticed how they supported each other physically and emotionally, like siblings used to adversity. The doors clanked open. The group emerged into a wide, half-finished cargo bay with scaffolding on one side, crates on the other. Overhead lights flickered. A chill draft carried the scent of starship fuel. An out-of-place sign read, Dock 12, Restricted Access. He motioned them to take cover behind the stacked crates. Stay low, we'll find a shuttle or cargo freighter to get us out of here. Let me scout. He stepped forward. Before he could move 3 meters, muzzle flashes lit the darkness. Blaster bolts sizzled past. The group dove for cover. 4 heavily armored troopers advanced, using crates as cover. They wore insignias matching Kron's personal detail, an offshoot of NovaGene's security. One barked, Halt! By Kron's order, those assets are not to leave the station. Orion exchanged a quick glance with the sisters. They were pinned. The troopers spread out in a well-practiced formation. Zara clenched her fists. We can't be recaptured. We'd rather die. That's not happening, Orion said firmly. He tossed a small device over the crate. It popped with a burst of brilliant white light. A flashbang. Shouts followed. The troopers' formation broke as they shielded their eyes. Seizing the moment, Orion darted left, unleashing precise stun shots from his rifle. Rena seized an abandoned sidearm from a crate labeled Emergency Supplies, providing cover fire. Callie, though still weak, used the crate's vantage to lob a disorienting gas canister. Within seconds, the troopers were overwhelmed. One collapsed coughing, another sank unconscious. The last 2 fled deeper into the cargo bay, cursing. Move, Orion urged. This way! He sprinted across the open floor, weaving around supply pods. The sisters followed, stumbling occasionally but pushing through. At the far side of the bay lay 2 small craft. One was an unmanned cargo shuttle with open compartments, the other a battered older vessel that seemed flight-capable. Viella grinned grimly. I can pilot that if it starts. I've run sim training for NovaGene's corporate shuttles. Orion nodded. Callie, Rena, search for a fuel cell or power coupling. Zara, with me, we'll keep watch. Blaster fire crackled anew. The two troopers had circled around to intercept them. Orion hissed, "They're persistent," and fired a burst that made sparks fly off the cargo crate near the troopers. Zara clenched her jaw, glancing at Orion's rifle. "Give me a sidearm, I can shoot." He eyed her warily. "You sure you're steady enough?" "I was trained since childhood," Zara snapped. "Just give it." Reluctantly, he slid her a compact pulse pistol. She inhaled, steadied her stance against a crate, and loosed two well-aimed shots that pinned the troopers behind a forklift. Meanwhile, across the cargo bay, Viella clambered into the battered shuttle's cockpit. The hatch door squeaked in protest, but it opened. She fiddled with the console, bypassing the passcode. Sparks flew from the underside, and the engines rumbled to life. "Almost got it," she shouted over the hum. Rena and Callie lugged the small power cell from an adjacent stand, hooking it to the shuttle's external coupling. The overhead lights flickered ominously, as though the station's power grid was under heavy load. Orion glimpsed shapes moving in the far corner. Reinforcements. A half-dozen more troops in black armor poured in. "We're out of time! Viella, hurry!" Zara's face was tight with concentration as she fired again, covering the sisters. Orion grabbed a remote charge from his belt. "I'll create a diversion." He sprinted toward a stack of shipping barrels labeled Volatile Fuel Class C. Under normal circumstances, no one would detonate them in a pressurized cargo bay. But desperate times called for desperate measures. He just needed a controlled blast, enough to fill the bay with smoke and debris, not blow the entire station. He set the device carefully among the barrels. The troopers noticed, shouting an alarm. Orion dashed back behind crates. "Detonating in 3, 2. A muffled explosion shook the bay, sending up a geyser of white-hot sparks. Thick black smoke billowed upward, swirling around the lights. Troopers scattered, coughing. "This is it," Orion yelled, waving the sisters to the shuttle. They ran, half-blinded by smoke. Blaster bolts whined randomly, but missed their mark in the chaos. Callie and Rena dove aboard. Zara covered the rear. Viella punched the throttle, and the shuttle's engines roared. The craft hovered, throwing debris around in a violent gale. In a final leap, Zara and Orion scrambled into the open hatch. The door slammed shut with a hiss. The battered shuttle jerked upward, swaying in the smoky bay, then shot forward through the flickering shield barrier into the vacuum of space. For a moment, no one spoke. Only heavy breathing and the beep of the shuttle's old instrumentation filled the silence. Cirrus-One shrank behind them, a glowing metallic ring. The starry void welcomed them, each pinpoint of light a possible refuge or new threat. Viella's voice was the first to break the hush. "We can't go far in this crate. The fuel rods are almost spent." Orion nodded grimly, long enough to vanish from Krone's immediate radar. "Then we figure out our next step." Zara leaned against the cockpit door, pulse pistol still clutched. Her eyes flicked to Orion. "So, we're free, but for how long? Krone controls that station, plus half the shipping lanes." Orion clenched his fists. "We can't hide forever. We need real evidence to bring him down. My contact mentioned a planet called Radion 6, supposedly a hidden outpost for Krone's advanced operations." Rena, breath still ragged, chimed in. "I've heard that name. Krone used it to threaten us, something about shipping other assets to remote labs." Callie sank into a passenger seat. "So we find Krone's real base and gather proof? Or we just kill him outright?" A solemn hush followed. The four sisters shared a look. Each possessed a swirl of emotions: fear, anger, a desire for revenge, or maybe justice. Orion lowered his voice. "Killing him might be simpler, but it won't dismantle the entire network. We take him alive, force him to confess, or produce data that implicates any NovaGene board members backing him. Then we end the trafficking ring once and for all." A tremor ran through the shuttle. Viella frowned at the console. "We're losing power. Let me see if I can patch the thrusters for a short jump." She flicked a switch, half the lights dimmed, and the thrusters stabilized. Zara rubbed her temples, sedation still wearing off. "I want to see Krone pay for what he's done. Not just to us, but to all those kids he's tortured in those labs." Orion studied them, uncertain how four young women, forcibly sedated for who knows how long, still displayed such unwavering grit. "Then we do it together." For now, let's find a place to refuel, patch up this shuttle, and plan our next move. No one disagreed. The battered craft drifted into the star-flecked expanse, leaving Cirrus-One behind, alarms still likely blaring in the aftermath of their escape. Yet each occupant of the shuttle knew the fight was far from over. If anything, it had only just begun. Chapter 4. Reckoning and Revelations. They managed to limp the shuttle toward an outpost on the fringes of the system, a floating junkyard station known as Lemore 3. Less structured than Cirrus-One, Lemore 3 was effectively an assembly of derelict starship parts, tethered together by improvised docking rings. The entire place smelled of scorched metal and old lubricants. Orion guided the four sisters through the busy hodgepodge of corridors. Merchant stalls lined the makeshift halls, selling everything from black market plasma rifles to questionable alien delicacies. Glances from passers-by lingered on them, perhaps sensing their tension. He ushered them into a cramped workshop run by a contact, an elderly mechanic named Barrow Keyes. Barrow had patched Orion's ships many times in the past, no questions asked. The old man adjusted magnification goggles as he peered at the battered shuttle. "You really did a number on this hull, Vale. Looks like you flew through a meteor shower while half the thrusters were offline." Orion gave a humorless chuckle. "Close enough." Barrow jerked his chin at the sisters, who stood in a cluster, scanning the workshop. "Crew of yours?" "Temporary allies," Orion said simply. "Think you can have us flight-worthy by tomorrow?" Barrow scratched at his bristly beard. "Yeah, if you got the credits, and if you keep out of trouble while you're here." Orion paid half up front from the stash he carried. Then he and the sisters retreated to a small side room, a storage closet Barrow let them use as a makeshift hideout. It was cramped, stacked with welding tools, scrap electronics, and half-rusted metal plating. But at least it was private. They found seats on crates. A single overhead lamp buzzed. Orion exhaled. "We have until tomorrow to plan." Zara still clutched the sidearm. She set it on her lap. "You saved us from Krone's lab. That means we owe you some answers. You probably want to know who we are, truly." Orion crossed his arms, leaning back. "If you feel like telling, I won't force you." Callie exchanged a look with the others. "We're not clones, not entirely. NovaGene's founder had radical ideas about genetic dynasties, breeding the perfect corporate leadership from carefully selected lines. We're the result." Viella drummed her fingers on a crate. "One father, different gene donors for each sister, bred to lead the corporation in 4 specialized roles: governance, diplomacy, scientific innovation, and security. But we never got to choose that life." Rena's voice dropped. "Our father died, some say murdered, before we came of age. The board saw us as more brand assets than people. Kron was one of the executives who oversaw certain advanced modifications." Zara's eyes hardened. "He tested experimental implants on us, under the guise of improving leadership qualities. Then we started noticing how children from frontier worlds were disappearing. He used them as test subjects too, less risky from a corporate PR standpoint than harming us. Eventually we tried to blow the whistle. That's when Kron turned on us, claiming we were defective. We woke up in that vault lab months later." Orion listened intently, his own anger simmering. "So you 4 never actually took over NovaGene?" Viella shook her head. "No. We were close to controlling a solid share of the corporation's voting rights. But Kron and his faction blindsided us. They had enough board support to label us mentally compromised. And the rest is your typical corporate coup." Silence. A background hum from the station's worn-out ventilation system filled the gap. Finally, Orion spoke. "If Kron gets away with this, the entire NovaGene empire might shift to his brand of operation. More forced implants, more child trafficking. He'll leverage the corporation's resources for unimaginable atrocities." Zara nodded solemnly. "That's why we can't just run. We have to go back for him, or at least gather the evidence that the board can't ignore." Callie's lips tightened. "If the board is complicit, though, we have bigger problems. We might need the Galactic Council or other corporate watchdogs to intervene." Orion rummaged in his satchel and produced the data chip from his lounge contact on Cirrus-One. "I got this from a whistleblower. Might tie Kron to certain shipments and test logs. But it's incomplete. Mentions a hidden lab on Radion 6. If we can confirm the same atrocities there and tie them to Kron, We'll have a case even the board can't bury. Rena took the chip, examined it. I can try to cross-reference it with what we remember. If we get proof Kron or his allies are behind all these black projects, the board will be forced to remove them, or the council will tear NovaGene apart. Zara's expression brightened slightly. So that's the plan? Tomorrow, once the shuttle is fixed, we head to Radion 6. We gather the final evidence, then confront Kron. Callie exhaled. Confronting Kron sounds suicidal. He's got mercenaries, black budgets, entire security details. Orion's gaze hardened. We'll do it covertly, if we can. But if it comes down to violence, we fight. Satisfied for now, they lapsed into a heavy quiet. Each one recognized the magnitude of what they intended. Should Kron sense them coming, he'd throw everything in their path. Eventually, they dozed off in shifts. Orion took first watch, rifle in hand, eyes on the flickering lamp. A swirl of thoughts plagued him. Memories of old missions, how he'd carried out brutal tasks for warlords before he had grown a conscience. Perhaps saving these sisters and the children was his attempt at redemption, however fleeting. Outside, Laymore 3's ragtag bustle continued. The station rotated slowly, letting the dim star's light sweep across portholes. Hours ticked by. When morning cycle arrived, Barrow keyed the door, announcing the shuttle was flight ready. Took more patchwork than usual, he grumbled. It'll fly, but don't expect anything fancy. They gathered themselves. Orion paid the balance and shared a final handshake with Barrow. Then, holding their heads high, the five boarded the newly patched shuttle. Over the station's battered PA system, someone hawked secondhand starship hulls. The group ignored it, focusing on the mission ahead. Callie strapped into a seat. Rena took a spot near the nav console. Zara stood by Orion's side, scanning for any sign of sabotage. Viella took the pilot seat again, running pre-flight checks. Engines roared, and the shuttle rose from the metal deck, aiming toward the docking clamp exit. The station's outer doors slid open, unveiling the cosmic panorama. As the vessel soared into space once more, the sisters wore expressions that reflected a mixture of determination, fear, and hope. Orion tapped in coordinates for Radion 6, the place rumored to be Kron's main stronghold. Ready? He asked. Zara nodded. Let's end this. The shuttle's thrusters glowed bright, pushing them into the unknown. If Kron was there, they'd find him. If he wasn't, they'd uncover something even bigger. A conspiracy that might reshape the fate of NovaGene and possibly the entire biotech sector in the quadrant. Either way, none of them would emerge from Radion 6 unchanged. Chapter 5. Radion 6, Planet of Secrets. Radion 6 was a planet of swirling cyan storms and jagged canyons, orbiting a weak sun. As the shuttle broke atmosphere, turbulence rocked the cabin. Teal-hued clouds, heavy with chemical-laden vapors, obscured the horizon. Viella gripped the controls, sweat beading on her brow. Wind shear's fierce. The nav sensor says there's an installation at grid coords 4219, but I can barely see. Orion studied the display. A small energy signature pulsed in the southwestern quadrant. That has to be Kron's base. We'll set down a few clicks. Avoid direct approach. Following the plan, they angled toward a barren plateau just outside sensor range. The shuttle landed with a jarring thud on cracked pale terrain dotted with stunted alien shrubs. Greenish dust swirled around them. They emerged onto the planet's surface. The air outside was thin, though breathable if you were careful. They each wore a basic rebreather mask. The environment smelled acrid, reminiscent of burned plastic and sulfur. Zara squinted toward the distant haze where the base presumably lay. Hard to believe someone built a facility here. Orion nodded. Secrecy is valuable. No prying eyes, minimal traffic. Callie pulled on gloves. So, infiltration first or recon? Infiltration, Orion replied. If Kron's inside, time is against us. If he's not, we can gather data anyway. They marched across the plateau, stepping carefully to avoid fissures in the ground. The planet's surface occasionally crackled underfoot, revealing glassy volcanic rock. Thin wisps of vapor rose from subterranean vents, shimmering in the sunlight. After almost an hour, the silhouette of a fortified structure came into view. Low-slung buildings, heavily shielded, connected by covered walkways. Towers rose at intervals, presumably for scanning and anti-air turrets. The entire compound was ringed by chain fences topped with coil spikes. Rena crouched behind a large boulder, rummaging in her pack. Let me see if I can tap into their local feed from here. She produced a small dish antenna. I'll run a quick network infiltration. While she worked, the others scanned the perimeter with binoculars. They spotted roving patrols, four-person squads clad in black tactical gear. Some had the same NovaGene crest as on Cirrus-One. Others bore no insignia at all. Zara's voice trembled with a controlled anger. Look! She pointed near the center building where a penned courtyard held at least a dozen children in threadbare clothes, guarded by armed personnel. The kids were sorted into lines as if for a medical inspection. A wave of furious disgust swept through them. Even Orion, hardened by years of combat, felt his stomach clench. So this is Krone's hidden stash. Rena's dish beeped softly. Got partial access. The base is run by Kron's coded ID, plus unknown third parties. Schedules, supply logs. I see references to Project Splicer Forge. They're forcibly implanting children with genetic enhancements, then testing their endurance. Some shipments left for undisclosed buyers. Others, she trailed off. Zara balled her fists, struggling to keep her composure. We have to free them. Orion nodded. Agreed, but we need to do it carefully. If Krone's inside, we can't let him slip away during the chaos. Let's plan an infiltration from the southern quadrant. It's less guarded, maybe because it's mostly service entrances. They moved quietly, circling the perimeter until they reached a spot where the fence abutted a rock outcropping. Orion applied a silent plasma cutter to slice an opening in the fence. They slipped inside, crouching behind a shed that smelled of harsh chemicals. From there, they saw a low building with a sign reading Biolab 2. Lights flickered within. A half-open cargo door at the rear beckoned. Two board guards loitered near the entrance, occasionally glancing at handheld monitors. Callie, with surprising stealth, slipped it up behind them. She clutched a short baton Orion had given her. One swift strike to the first guard's neck, and he collapsed. The second guard managed a shout before Zara tackled him from the side, stifling the alarm. They dragged the bodies behind the shed, ensuring none of the roving patrols spotted them. Inside Biolab 2, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Rows of stainless steel tables and flickering holo displays hinted at advanced but hurried research. Vials of unknown serums lined shelves. The place was eerily empty, no technicians or scientists in sight. Orion crossed to a central console, motioning Rena to join him. She began tapping in, bypassing the security locks. Let's see if Krone's somewhere here. Zara and Callie fanned out, checking side rooms. One held medical cages, presumably used for confining test subjects. Another was a supply closet with stacks of sedation drugs. The entire atmosphere reeked of cruelty and secrecy. Suddenly, Rena let out a soft gasp. He's here! Krone arrived last night. He's scheduled a private demonstration in about an hour at the main building. Viella tensed. A demonstration of what? Torturing kids for prospective buyers? Rena's eyes darted across the readouts. Looks like it. The logs mentioned final stress tests on living prototypes. The children outside. Orion clenched his jaw. We have to intervene. If we blow the operation now, Krone might try to kill them all to cover his tracks. Zara's face hardened with resolve. We can't wait. Let's split up. Some free the children, the rest find Krone. They all turned to Orion, who was effectively the tactical backbone of the group. He nodded. All right, Zara, Rena, come with me to corner Krone. We'll handle the main building infiltration. Callie, Viella, you circle around to the courtyard. Once we create a diversion, you break them out. Then we converge at the landing pads out back. A wave of adrenaline surged. This was it, the final confrontation they'd traveled light years for. If they failed, the children's fate was sealed, and Krone would expand his twisted empire. They left Biolab 2, creeping amid the shadows of the compound. Each footstep felt heavier with consequence. Overhead, a swirl of teal storm clouds churned in the sky, as if mirroring the tension below. None of them noticed the silent cameraman perched on a tower, tracking their every move. Far away inside the main building, Krone sipped a glass of rare liquor, a cold smile on his lips as his console displayed a live feed. He tapped an alert button, summoning his personal guard. Welcome to my domain, Vale, he murmured. Let's see if you can survive it. Chapter 6. Assault on the Courtyard. Callie and Viella moved swiftly along the perimeter of the courtyard. Through the chain fence, they saw around 15 children, ranging in age from perhaps 7 to 13, wearing identical gray smocks. A few guards patrolled the yard, rifles slung across their backs. Viella surveyed the patrol pattern. She whispered to Callie, "We'll need a distraction to keep them from gunning down the kids the moment we attack." Callie nodded. "We could sabotage that power junction." She pointed to a generator humbly perched on the courtyard's edge, powering lights and possibly the containment system. But as they planned, the children were being herded into a loading bay attached to a large transport vehicle. Fearful eyes, hollow stares. The guards barked orders, prodding them forward. If the kids were moved inside, freeing them would become far harder. "Now or never," Callie breathed. Viella nodded, heart pounding. She rummaged in her belt pouch for a small device, a smoke bomb Orion had given them. She lobbed it over the fence. It landed near the center, spewing thick gray clouds that billowed into the yard. Instantly, the guards shouted in alarm, rifles swinging. Kids shrank to the ground, coughing. Callie leaped forward, throwing a second device that crackled with EMP pulses, shorting out the generator. The overhead floodlights popped and died, plunging half the courtyard into shadows. The guards opened fire blindly into the smoke. Bolts hissed overhead, sparking against the metal fence. Viella unholstered a pistol, returning measured shots. She aimed for the guards' legs and arms, disabling them without lethal force, just as Orion had insisted they do unless absolutely necessary. Callie vaulted over a fence section, landing among the children. She waved frantically, coughing through the haze. "This way! Get down!" The kids, terrified, clustered around her. She recognized how vulnerable they were. Any stray bolt would kill them. She crouched low, guiding them behind a row of cargo crates along the yard's edge. A guard stumbled through the smoke, rifle at the ready. Viella tackled him from behind, sending his weapon skittering away. Another guard spotted them, aiming but faltered as Callie's pistol barked. The shot struck his shoulder, and he collapsed with a grunt. "Move," Callie urged the kids. "Run for that opening. Hurry!" A frail boy, maybe 8 years old, stared at her with wide, tear-streaked eyes. Where do we go?" Callie forced a reassuring tone. "Anywhere but here. We have a shuttle outside the perimeter. Stay close and we'll get you out." The children rushed through the parted fence in a panicked line, clinging to each other. In the confusion, a few guards tried regrouping, but Viella lobbed another smoke bomb to keep them disoriented. She and Callie corralled the children across the yard, hearts hammering. More shouts echoed from the main building. Reinforcements would arrive soon. "Just a bit farther," Callie hissed. A sudden clang behind them. A towering figure in heavier armor emerged from the swirling smoke, face hidden behind a tinted visor. The new arrival raised a massive energy weapon, angled at the cluster of children. Callie's stomach lurched. "No!" The figure pressed the trigger. A white-hot beam shot forth, but missed as Viella dove to push the children aside. The shot blasted into the ground, scorching a gash in the dirt. Viella rolled, chest heaving. She aimed, fired, but the figure's armor dissipated the bolt. It turned, leveling the weapon again. Callie realized there was no time for half measures. She drew a backup micro-grenade from Orion's supply, thumbed the safety off. With a desperate throw, she lodged it under the figure's left arm. "Down!" she yelled, yanking Viella to the dirt. A controlled explosion ripped through the figure's side. The armor cracked, hurling shards. Smoke and dust billowed. When it cleared, the figure lay crumpled, weapon sizzling uselessly. Exhaling shakily, Callie checked on Viella. They were both bruised but intact. The children huddled nearby, eyes wide with shock. An alarm rang out across the compound. More spotlights flickered, backup generators kicking in. They had to keep moving. Callie mustered her calmest voice. "All right, come on. The fence is open here. We'll lead you to our shuttle. Stay close. Keep your heads down." Viella supported the stragglers, glancing over her shoulder at the main building. "Hope Orion and the others are okay." With that, they shepherded the children away from the courtyard, through the hole in the fence. The wind whipped up a swirling haze of dust under the harsh sporadic lights, painting a scene of chaos. Behind them, sirens blared anew. Krone's men would descend on them like a pack of wolves. But for now, they had a chance. The children they'd managed to free, at least, wouldn't suffer further at Krone's hands. Chapter 7. Face to Face with Krone. Meanwhile, Orion, Zara, and Rena navigated the main building's labyrinthine corridors. The place felt like a fortress. Triple reinforced doors, cameras at every junction, scanning turrets set in the ceilings. Rena used her hacking kit to loop camera feeds, clearing a path. Zara covered their flank with the pulse pistol, while Orion led with a silent, predatory grace. They heard a commotion echo through the halls, likely the courtyard assault. Krone's radio chatter crackled faintly from overhead speakers. Intruders in the yard, contain them or exterminate them, and someone secure our prime demonstration subjects. A wave of rage flashed across Zara's face. He's talking about those kids like lab rats. Orion quietly squeezed her shoulder in solidarity. We'll handle him. Following the corridor, they emerged onto a wide observation deck with glass windows overlooking a large central hall. Below, Krone stood on a platform addressing a half-circle of well-dressed individuals. The hush suggested these were prospective buyers or investors. Krone's voice carried up to them. Ladies and gentlemen, the future of biotech is here. No more guesswork, no more slow gene therapies, just immediate, reliable enhancements in speed, strength, and intelligence. We've perfected the procedure on test subjects of all ages. A murmur of excitement rose from the crowd. Rena clenched her teeth. He's brazen, displaying all this openly. Orion noticed the presence of multiple guards posted around the hall, each armed with advanced rifles. Krone had clearly prepared for any sabotage. This was his main demonstration. Zara pointed to a side stairwell that led down to the main floor. We'll never get close unless we disrupt the demonstration. Could we cause a power surge? Rena nodded. If I can reach that control panel on the far side, I can overload the building's grid. Orion weighed the risks. That'd cause confusion, but Krone might slip away. Zara's eyes burned with determination. We'll corner him. He can't outrun us all if the hall goes dark. A plan took shape quickly. Rena would circle to the control panel, sabotage the power grid. Zara and Orion would infiltrate from opposite sides once the lights went out, cutting off Krone's escape. They parted ways. Rena moved swiftly, hugging the shadows. Meanwhile, Orion guided Zara down a separate hallway that emptied into the demonstration hall's flank. They crouched behind a row of equipment crates. The murmur of voices was louder, though. Krone gestured to a holodisplay, showing spliced DNA strands. We can adapt these treatments to entire populations. Imagine an army of genetically perfected soldiers, a workforce that never tires. The potential is limitless. His audience seemed enraptured. Some recorded the speech with handheld devices. Others typed notes on sleek tablets. Suddenly, the overhead lights flickered. Krone paused mid-sentence, frowning. What? A loud pop echoed through the room, followed by the hiss of fuses blowing. The building's power flickered again, and in an instant, the grand hall plunged into near darkness. Only emergency floor lights and a few flickering overheads remained. Panic rippled among the guests. Guards raised their rifles, scanning the gloom. Krone cursed under his breath, voice dripping with cold fury. Find the intruders. Orion seized the moment. He and Zara slipped from behind the crates, creeping amid the confusion. One guard spotted them, but Zara stunned him with a quick shot. Another guard advanced, but Orion disarmed him with a precise strike, sending the rifle clattering. They closed in on Krone, who stood near the dais. He wore a high-collared executive coat, but the glare in his eyes spoke of a man who was no mere businessman. He tapped a small device on his wrist, and a personal energy shield shimmered into view around him. Vale, Krone spat, voice echoing in the cavernous hall. So you're the meddling bounty hunter who's been sniffing around my domain. The scattered guests retreated, uncertain if they were in the middle of a lethal crossfire. The guards flanked Krone, weapons humming. Zara aimed her pistol, stepping forward. You won't enslave any more people for your twisted experiments. Krone recognized her, his lips twisted into a cruel grin. Ah, one of the rebellious heirs. Still misguided, I see. You could have joined me, become unstoppable. Zara fired, but the shot crackled against Krone's shield, dissipating harmlessly. He raised a hand, signaling his guards to hold. I'd prefer not to kill you, but if I must. Orion advanced, rifle at the ready. Surrender, Krone. We have evidence tying you to child trafficking, unauthorized gene splicing, and attempted murder of NovaGene's rightful successors. Crone laughed, the sound humorless. Evidence that will vanish along with you. This demonstration was my final proof of concept. Soon, the entire galaxy will clamor for my methods. You think the board will punish me? They'll hail me as their savior. Anger flashed through Orion's chest. We'll see about that. Without warning, the building trembled. Then a thunderous crash shook the hall. The overhead lighting flickered once more, revealing Rena perched above on a catwalk. She had triggered some form of structural sabotage, sending an entire row of scaffolding crashing near the dais. Sparks rained. Smoke choked the air. The guards scattered, some pinned by falling debris. Crone cursed, shield flickering. Zara leaped forward, firing repeatedly. Orion joined in, focusing on the same shield frequency, hoping to overload it. The shimmering barrier faltered under the sustained barrage. Crone's face twisted with fury as he realized the shield was about to fail. He tapped his wrist device again, stepping backward. Guards, handle them. I'll see you all in hell. Before Orion could stop him, Crone vaulted off the dais, sprinting behind a collapsed portion of catwalk. 3 guards rushed to intercept Zara and Orion. The bounding dimness and swirling dust made the brawl chaotic. Zara kicked aside one guard's rifle, landing a swift blow to his helmet. Orion engaged 2 simultaneously, blocking with his rifle stock. One guard slashed with an electrified baton, grazing Orion's shoulder. Pain flared, but he gritted his teeth, retaliating with a savage strike to the guard's gut. Rena hopped down from the catwalk, carefully picking her way across debris. Crone's escaping. I'll cut him off. In the confusion, Crone was heading for a side door marked Restricted Launch Bay. The last thing Orion saw was Crone's coat flapping as he vanished through the exit. We can't let him get away, Zara panted, finishing off the last guard. Orion grabbed her hand, pulling her along. Then let's go. Rena, with us. They left the demonstration hall in shambles. Some of Crone's potential buyers cowered behind overturned tables, while others tried to flee the building entirely. The overhead klaxon wailed, alerting the entire compound. Time was running out. If Crone reached a private ship, he'd be gone, free to continue his monstrous empire. The 3 sprinted after him, determined to end this once and for all. Chapter 8. The hunt nears its end. Amid echoing alarms, Orion, Zara, and Rena pelted down a corridor, littered with debris and flickering emergency lights. The restricted launch bay sign was ominous. Crone likely had a getaway vessel stashed there. A security checkpoint blocked the way. Thick blast doors sealed shut. Orion slid to a stop, eyeing the console. Locked down, Rena stepped up, hooking a cable from her hacking kit. I'll try the override. Cover me. Zara readied her pistol, scanning the corridor behind them. The compound's klaxon droned, accompanied by distant gunfire. Callie and Viella must still be causing chaos in the courtyard. Or more likely, they were leading the freed children to safety. Seconds stretched as Rena typed furiously. They've coded the door with a dynamic encryption cycle. Crone's not making this easy. Orion's thoughts turned dark. If Crone managed to launch, no one knew where he might appear next. Possibly a new lab on some unknown planet, with fresh victims. Gritting his teeth, Orion flicked open a hidden compartment in his belt. I've got a secondary plan, he said quietly, pulling out a small device. Portable meltdown charge. It'll blow the door hinges. Zara raised an eyebrow. That had set off more alarms. Orion nodded. We're beyond subtlety. Rena sighed, stepping back. It'll be faster than hacking. Do it. He planted the meltdown charge at the lower edge of the blast door, pressing the activator. Back up! A searing white glow spread from the device, metal sizzling. Hot sparks showered the floor as the meltdown acid ate through steel. In less than a minute, the door was compromised enough for Orion to deliver a strong kick, snapping the weakened lock. They shoved the door aside, stepping into a smaller launch bay. A sleek, dark spacecraft, a high-speed executive cutter, rested on the pad with engines warming. Crone stood near the open ramp, frantically loading a small crate. At the sight of them, he dropped the crate, eyes blazing. I told you to stay out of my affairs, Vale, Crone hissed. Then he brandished a sleek sidearm, aim unwavering. I'd hoped to turn the heirs into allies or revenue streams, but it appears you'd rather destroy all we built. Zara leveled her pistol back at him. You built nothing but horror. Your empire ends now. Crone scoffed, pressing a control on his wrist. The ship's defensive turret swiveled from the hull, a slender barrel glowing menacingly. We'll see about that. The turret fired, forcing Orion's group to dive behind cargo crates. The heavy blast slammed into the floor, leaving molten scorch marks. Crone advanced toward his ship's ramp. Rena peeked out. We have to disable that turret or we'll be pinned. Orion scanned the environment. A forklift on the left, some fuel canisters near the ship's hull on the right. If we can blow those canisters, the turret's line of fire might be obstructed. Zara nodded. I'll keep Crone busy. She rose, unleashing a volley of pistol blasts at Crone's direction. Crone ducked behind the ramp's side, returning fire with savage accuracy. Shots whined overhead. Meanwhile, Orion crawled along the floor, hugging the crates for cover, inching toward the canisters. Rena followed, rummaging for an explosive. The turret tracked them, firing short bursts that hammered the deck. Sparks flew. Now! Orion hissed. Rena lobbed a small detonation charge. It rolled under the stack of canisters. Boom! The explosion wasn't huge, but it knocked the canisters off balance, sending them clanging to the floor. One ruptured, spewing thick smoke and flaming liquid that quickly spread across the bay. The turret pivoted, sensors overwhelmed by the heat and swirling haze. Its aim wavered. Zara seized the opening, firing at Crone. He dodged behind the ship's ramp, cursing as stray blasts from his own turret threatened to clip him. Orion and Rena dashed closer, weaving between fallen crates. Crone fired blindly in their direction. One bolt grazed Orion's leg, making him stumble. Pain flared, but he pushed on. Crone, stand down, Rena shouted. This is your last chance to answer for your crimes. Crone's laughter rang cold. Crimes? I've done the galaxy a favor, pushing biotech to new heights. He pressed another command on his wrist device, and the ship's engines roared at full throttle. The ramp began lifting. Crone lunged for it, ready to board and escape. Zara was faster. She sprinted forward, ignoring the danger. The ramp was half raised when she leapt, grabbing the edge and hauling herself onto it. Crone whirled, punching at her face. She blocked with her forearm, returning a fierce elbow to his ribs. They grappled in the narrow space, the ramp still inching upward. Crone tried to bring his pistol up, but Zara locked his arm in place. You won't hurt any more children, she spat, each word punctuated by a strike. Below, Orion and Rena rushed under the lowering hull, scanning for a manual override. If the ramp sealed, Zara would be alone with Crone. Over here, Rena called, spotting a side panel. She yanked it open, a tangle of wires within. As the ramp continued to rise, Orion pried a circuit module free. The motors ground to a halt, leaving the ramp half open. Above them, Crone managed to break Zara's hold. He slammed her head into the ramp's frame, stunning her. She faltered, eyes fluttering. Crone seized the chance, bringing his pistol to her temple. No more theatrics, Crone hissed, chest heaving. Enough, Zara groaned, still dazed. He was about to pull the trigger when a shot from below streaked in, blasting his pistol away. Crone snarled, spinning to see Orion standing at the base of the ramp, rifle raised. Let her go, Orion said coldly, finger on the trigger. Clutching his injured hand, Crone spat blood. This changes nothing. If you kill me, you lose the evidence. My data, my network. Only I can reveal it all. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Orion's gaze. Crone was a major key to prosecuting the entire ring. Orion, who once believed in lethal efficiency, hesitated. If Crone died, the rest of NovaGene's conspirators could claim ignorance, continuing the cycle. Zara, regaining her senses, saw the conflict in Orion's eyes. She steadied herself, ignoring the pounding in her skull. Then we don't kill him. Rena scrambled up, aiming her sidearm from another angle. Drop to your knees, Crone. Hands on your head. Crone's gaze danced between them, calculating. Smoke and flames from the canisters lapped at the edges of the launch bay, the turret still glitching. The ship's engines roared, partially engaged. The scene was chaos. Fine, he said at last, sinking to his knees, his face twisted with hatred. You fools, you have no idea the forces you're unleashing. Orion kept his rifle trained. We'll manage. Zara pried Crone's wrist device free, tossing it aside. The personal shield flickered, then died. Kron glared daggers at her, lip curled. Rena clicked a pair of restraints around Kron's wrists. Now you answer to all those you've tormented. The building trembled again. Another explosion rocked the compound, likely from Callie and Viela's activities outside. The sisters had hopefully evacuated the children. Alarms flared, klaxons howling. We can't stay here. This entire place might blow, Orion muttered. Zara nodded. Let's find the others and get Kron onto our shuttle. He's our living testimony. Adrenaline still pounded in her veins. She glared at Kron. Try anything, I will end you. He said nothing, cold fury burning in his eyes. Rena tapped the half-lowered ramp controls, forcing it back down so Kron could be marched off. Orion's leg throbbed, but he pushed the pain aside. Their mission was almost complete. In the distance, they heard frantic gunfire and shouts. Kron's men must still be in the fight, but with Kron captured, their chain of command was broken. They guided him out of the launch bay. The overhead swirl of greenish smoke and raging fires made the corridor feel like some surreal inferno. If not for the rebreathers, they'd be choking on the acrid air. Finally, the three exited the building, Kron in tow, stepping into the battered courtyard. The fence was twisted in places. Bodies of unconscious guards lay scattered. The night sky was tinted with the planet's toxic storms, glowing teal in the distance. There, near the perimeter, Callie and Viela appeared, waving. A group of children, some crying, some dazed, clustered behind them. Relief surged through Orion at the sight that they were alive. Callie's eyes fell on Kron, shackled and bleeding. You got him. Good. Viela hurried the children along. We prepped the shuttle. We can't risk staying. The structure's about to blow. Some meltdown triggered in the labs. Thunderous booms from deeper in the complex punctuated her words. Fire licked the edges of the buildings. Kron sneered as he watched his empire collapse. Under Orion's direction, they escorted the children across the yard to the near side of the compound, where their patched-up shuttle stood waiting, engines humming. The kids, though petrified, trudged forward. In that moment, Kron snarled, twisting violently in Rena's grip. He lunged for a dropped guard's pistol. But before he could fire, Zara slammed him with the butt of her own weapon, knocking him to the ground. Stay down, she hissed, and with that, Kron's last gamble for freedom slipped away. The group led him up the shuttle ramp, children trailing, the entire compound behind them, an inferno of collapsing steel. Viela took the helm, flipping switches. Orion eased Kron into a corner seat, cuffing him to an anchor point. The man glowered, sullen and beaten. Zara sat near the children, checking for injuries. She murmured gentle reassurances. Some clung to her as their new protector. Engines whined, the shuttle lifted off, battered hull shaking in the updraft. They soared into Radion 6's toxic sky, leaving Kron's twisted fortress behind. As the storms parted, the shuttle burst free of the planet's gravity well. The freed children gazed wide-eyed at the stars beyond. For them, it was a glimpse of hope. No one spoke for a long stretch. Orion finally breathed a ragged sigh, turning to Kron. We'll find a tribunal or the board itself to hear your confession. One that you'll sign and record. You're done, Kron. He spat blood, voice thick with loathing. You can tear me down, but NovaGene is bigger than any one man. The board will bury your evidence if it suits them. Zara answered, voice steely. We are the board, remember? We're rightful heirs, and we're taking back what you stole. A flicker of fear crossed Kron's eyes then, hinting that maybe, just maybe, he realized how thoroughly undone he was. Thus, they soared into the cosmos, Kron bound, children rescued. But the battle for NovaGene's soul wasn't finished yet. Orion and the heirs would soon return to Cirrus-One, or some seat of power, unveiling the monstrous truth for all to see. Whether the board crumpled beneath them or rose to the occasion remained uncertain. But at least, for the children's sake, and for all future victims of Kron's cruelty, a new dawn was possible. Chapter 9. A New Dawn for NovaGene. Epilogue. Resolution. They docked at Cirrus-One again under heavy cloak and used a discreet bay, where Orion's earlier forgeries still had some pull. The station's swirling neon lights felt strangely normal, belying the magnitude of what had transpired on Radion 6. Within hours, word spread that Kron had been apprehended. The sisters wasted no time. Rena transmitted reams of data, video logs, genetic experiment archives, shipping manifests, to the top-tier board members. She attached a note. We have Kron and a trove of evidence. We will meet in the main council chamber. Resist us, and the galaxy sees everything. The board meeting erupted in chaos. Some directors feigned ignorance, others raged at Kron's hidden labs. A few were revealed to be silent partners in his black projects, but the majority realized the corporation's entire future was at stake. Standing in that sleek, high-windowed boardroom, the four heirs faced a sea of corporate power players. Kron, shackled and flanked by station security, glowered at them from the side. Zara spoke first, her voice unwavering. We are the rightful successors of the NovaGene empire. As founding daughters, we reclaim our seats on the board. We bring indisputable proof that Johann Kron engaged in human trafficking, unethical modifications, and attempted murder. We demand his immediate removal and a full corporate tribunal. Kron tried to shout something, but a guard elbowed him to silence. Rena stepped forward. Additionally, any board member found complicit in Kron's activities will face charges. NovaGene will publicly atone, fund rehabilitation for the children, dismantle the labs, and open all sealed records to external auditors. A hush fell. Some directors trembled, realizing the corporation risked dissolution or worse if they refused. Others, warned by the scandal's weight, simply nodded acceptance. One elder statesman, once an ally to Kron, stood. This is indeed catastrophic, but with your evidence, we must ensure accountability. The galaxy's trust in NovaGene is paramount. Callie and Viella oversaw the children's processing, ensuring they received medical care and were reunited with families if possible. A wave of empathy rippled among station residents, many outraged by the revelations. NovaGene's stock plummeted overnight, but the four heirs emerged as beacons of reformation. They promised a new era of biotech, transparent, ethical. Orion watched from the sidelines, leaning against a polished wall, rifle slung casually over his shoulder. He caught Zara's eye. She offered a small smile. "Don't vanish yet," she said quietly when she approached. "We owe you." Orion shrugged. "I didn't do it for money alone." "Maybe not, but you deserve some reward." He nodded slowly, scanning the majestic arc of the boardroom, the corporate heads still reeling from the day's events. "Part of me wants to vanish back into the black, picking up the next bounty. Part of me wonders if I can do more good here or somewhere else, unraveling more of these horrors." Zara placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Whatever you choose, know you have allies. We can pay you well, and if you want to keep hunting criminals like Kron, we'll back you with official NovaGene resources. The legitimate side of NovaGene anyway." Orion's mouth curved in a faint grin. "I'll think about it. For now, I'd like to be sure these kids are safe." She nodded. "Agreed." Across the room, Kron was dragged away by security, face dark with hatred. The board declared an internal tribunal would begin immediately, with external watchers from the Galactic Council. Kron's smuggling ring was done. Later, in a quieter chamber, the four sisters, Zara, Callie, Viella, Rena, shared a moment of reflection. They'd spent their entire lives overshadowed by corporate agendas. At last, they were in a position to steer NovaGene on a path that might truly serve the galaxy, not exploit it. Rena exhaled. "I never imagined we'd be here after everything." Callie wrapped an arm around her. "We have each other, and we have a cause." Violetta's gaze drifted to the large station windows, where starlight glittered. "We have a chance to right the wrongs done in our name." Zara turned to Orion, who was leaning into the doorway. "And we have a friend who risked his life." Orion tried to brush it off. "I've been risking my life since I was old enough to hold a blaster." She smiled. "Let's hope we can do better than that from now on." They walked together to a vantage deck overlooking the swirling traffic lanes around Cirrus-One. Freighters, pleasure yachts, cargo haulers moved in an intricate dance. For the freed children, some already reunited with tearful parents, others placed under protective care, this station was now a symbol of second chances. In a final board session that evening, the sisters assumed controlling shares. A resolution declared Kron's entire project forcibly dismantled, all test subjects freed, and reparations established. Investigations into any complicit directors would proceed. The scandal was monumental, but the corporate infrastructure would survive, ideally cleansed of its darkest elements. When the session ended, Orion quietly slipped away. He found his newly repaired personal ship waiting in a private hangar, courtesy of the sisters' generosity. The bounty on Crone? They insisted on paying it out of their personal funds as a thank you and a moral statement. A final wave of farewell saw him departing Cirrus-One. The four heirs stood on the observation platform, each wearing the formal attire of corporate rulers, but with genuine warmth in their eyes. He saluted them through the cockpit glass. They responded in kind, knowing that no words could sum up what they'd been through together. The engines roared, and Orion's craft slipped into the starry void, leaving the station behind. He carried with him a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that, for once, he hadn't just ended a life, but saved countless lives. A small measure of redemption in a galaxy where justice was often overshadowed by greed. Back on Cirrus-One, the corporate empire known as NovaGene began a new chapter under the watchful eyes of its rightful heirs, determined to salvage the future from the horrors of the past. The children rescued from Radion 6 and future generations would hopefully flourish in a galaxy a little less cruel, thanks to an unlikely alliance forged in the darkness. And so with Kron's empire dismantled, Orion Vale vanishes into the cosmos, his destiny forever changed by the courageous heirs he helped save. But is this truly the end of his journey or just the beginning of something bigger? Thank you so much for joining us today. If this story moved you, thrilled you, or inspired you, hit that subscribe button and become a part of our storytelling family. We have many more exciting adventures ahead, and your support means the world to us. What did you think of the ending? Did Orion make the right choice, or would you have done something differently? Share your opinions in the comments below, and don't forget to tell us where you're tuning in from. We always love hearing from our listeners around the galaxy. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and keep reaching for the stars.